Hello, this is Artemis_anime, and today I am reading Say Goodbye to Yesterday. It's a New Day by PoppinBoppin. Summary. You're that crazy freshman who broke all his fingers, Izuku hears, and his eyes snap to the side, where there's another student. He didn't hear him come over at all. His hair is white, wispy like the clouds, and his eyes are bright and curious. There's a breathe right stripe slapped right across his nose, the brand ever powerful even after 2 centuries. Izuku swears he's never seen this student before, but he's wearing a Yui uniform all the time. 5 times Izuku spends on the rooftop, and 1 time he spends time with his friends, still on the rooftop, but it's different. Notes: this isn't even a proper 5+1, but listen, I don't care, and I do what I want. Speaking things of that I want though, I totally brought the Sanrio Bnha earrings, and they're comfortable too. Thanks for all the help from Shutai and Jinnario. 1. The cafeteria is always too crowded, too noisy, and today is no exception. When his friends ask him if he wants to eat lunch together with them, Izuku quickly makes the excuse that he already has plans with All Might. That's a lie, and it burns to say it, but the cafeteria is just too much for him to handle. Todoroki-kun side-eyes him for a moment, most likely adding the lie to his ever-growing pile of evidence that Izuku is, in fact, All Might's secret love child. Ida-kun and Uraka-san are understanding enough, though. I'm really sorry, I can't afford to miss this meeting, especially when it's with All Might. With his excuse soundly made, Izuku bolts off with an excuse that he'll be late slipping in from his mouth before his friends can be concerned with how fast he's moving, even without activating full cowl. When he knows he's soundly out of his friend's sight, he scurries up the many staircases until he reaches the roof and shuts the door behind him. The roof is empty, but that's exactly what Izuku had wanted. Finding a good place to sit, Izuku does just that, and leans back to relax. There was a time when he thought it would be nice to be able to float with the clouds. You're that crazy freshman who broke all his fingers, Izuku hears, and his eyes snap to the side, where there's another student. He didn't hear him come over at all. His hair is white, wispy like clouds, and his eyes are bright and curious. There's a breathe right strip slapped right across his nose, the band ever powerful even after 2 centuries. Izuku swears he's never seen this student before, but he's wearing a Yui uniform all the same. The most startling thing about the student is that he's staring directly at Izuku, only a few inches away. He's floating on a cloud and leaning forward to stare down at him. It's uncomfortably close, but Izuku is laying down, so it's fairly hard to lean backwards. Instead, he opts to roll to the side fairly quickly. Let it be said that Izuku did not jump away from the other student. Huh? The curious student seems surprised, but he grins. What are you doing over there? He calls at Izuku, too startled to form. Were you using the roof for something? I'm sorry, Izuku stammers out, and the other boy looks at him, puzzled for a minute before he grins and waves his arms. No, the roof wasn't occupied at all. Besides, it doesn't really matter if a student or two comes up here during lunch, right? The boy declares cheerfully, and drops himself right to where Izuku had rolled to. Right. I haven't seen you before. You're an upperclassman then? Izuku asks, and the boy nods. I'm Shikamaru Oboro. I'm in class 2A. Shikamaru-senpai cheerfully introduces himself, and Izuku nods. He hadn't had an opportunity to meet anyone from that class, but this is a good start. I'm Midoriya Izuku. It's good to meet you, Shikamaru-senpai, Izuku chirps. The two of them spend the rest of their lunch period gazing at the sky until the bell rings. Izuku bolts off to avoid being expelled. Come on, senpai, you'll be late, Izuku calls, but Shikamaru-senpai only waves cheerfully at him before laying back down to gaze at the sky some more. Shikamaru-senpai is weird, Izuku thinks as he scurries down the stairs 2 at a time. He's weird, but nice. 2. Izuku pushes open the door to the rooftop, expecting a quiet place to read. Last time was quiet enough, so he expects the same of this visit. The assignment for English is hard to focus on, especially when he thinks about. Shikamaru-senpai is already sitting by the railing, gazing up at the sky. His head is tilted backwards, but it snaps forward when he seems to hear Izuku approach. Izuku, it's good to see you. Izuku stills, but shuffles to sit down next to Shikamaru-senpai, who waves his hands enthusiastically. Small clouds float around in wisps around him. It makes it hard to see anything past the edge of the building. I thought second years were on internship this week, Shikamaru-senpai, Izuku asks, but Shikamaru laughs. More wisps of cloud float around the roof, obscuring his vision. It's sort of like a thick fog. Izuku falls backwards and is cushioned by another thick cloud, like a soft pillow. Right. Don't worry too much about that sort of thing. Right, Izuku? Shikamaru-senpai laughs, and Izuku cracks open his textbooks after a minute of staring at the clouds. Shikamaru-senpai shoves his head directly in front of the pages. Oh, English! I totally have a friend who likes that, so I can help you if you need it. Shikamaru-senpai begins, then starts rambling this and that in English. None of it is particularly useful for the assignment, but it's sort of calming to listen to someone else ramble for a bit. Shikamaru Obaro is a weirdo, but that's okay. Once, I found a cat in the rain, so I brought it to class with me. Shikamaru-senpai continues in English, and Izuku nods along. It was totally cute, and he was so small, his name is Sushi, after my favorite food. Shikamaru-senpai continues. Midnight Sensei's cat has the same name, Izuku chirps in, and Shikamaru-senpai stills, a blush high on his cheeks. Really? Then I'm glad to hear they're doing well, both of them. Is she taking care of your cat, then? Izuku asks, and Shikamaru-senpai gazes into the cloud-shaped cloud. Somewhat longingly. You could say that. The two of them pass over the rest of the afternoon in a haze of clouds pouring over Izuku's English textbook until his friend kicks open the door. Deku-kun, come on! We're going to see the new All Might movie, and you're late! Uraraka-san yells, and Izuku calls back, Oh sure, just let me pack up. Izuku goes to wave goodbye to Shikamaru-senpai, but he and the clouds are already gone from sight. 3. It's a little thing, but the rooftop is always cold. Izuku would have assumed that it's only so cold because the roof is outside and there's probably a breeze. But when he pulls out his notebook to record the cool things that he'd seen that day, Kirishima's hardening was very impressive, and the way Tsuyu-san bounced off the walls could be applied to a full cowl. The pages don't flutter around at all. Izuku bites his thumb as he tries to think of an explanation as to why the roof is always so cold, when there's nothing that would make it cold except for whatever temperature it is outside. He flinches when it becomes uncomfortably cold, and he turns around to see a shock of white. It's a cloud. Shikamaru-senpai? You're here again? Izuku exclaims, but it's the same as always. Shikamaru-senpai is always on the roof. Hey! Long time no see, Izuku. Shikamaru-senpai greets him, and Izuku smiles warmly. Oh, so bright! Shikamaru-senpai exclaims, and then plops to the ground right next to Izuku. What are you up to today, Izuku? Shikamaru-senpai tries to peek at Izuku's notebook, but Izuku slaps it shut on Shikamaru-senpai's nose. Honk! Shikamaru-senpai's voice is a little nasally, but he laughs good-naturedly. Whoa, Izuku, you've got some strength behind it. Izuku pales and begins to apologize, but Shikamaru-senpai waves that off. Don't worry, it was fun, Shikamaru-senpai says, but somehow, Izuku thinks it's only to make him feel more comfortable with having been slapped on his notebook shut around his cheeks. It's analysis and things I thought were cool. Izuku begins sliding the notebook off Shikamaru-senpai's face. Analysis, huh? Thought you learned that in second year. Shikamaru-senpai laughs. It's just a hobby, Izuku mutters. And Shikamaru-senpai perks up. Show me! Oh, do me! He exclaims excitedly. Well then, Izuku devolves into mutters, and the two of them spend the rest of the afternoon forming and reforming clouds, testing out various hypotheses, Izuku could almost cry. Anything that flows out of his mouth has been fair game, and when his Shikamaru-senpai doesn't catch it, he even lets Izuku repeat it. 4. There's an extra bento in Midoriya's hands, and he makes another excuse to slip away from his friends. Sometimes, he just does it. I'm going to do some homework while I eat on the roof. I'm sorry. Midoriya excuses himself before he runs off. His friends watch him run off, ever curious about it. Deku-kun sure spends a lot of time on the roof, huh? Uraraka comments after a moment. Tenya nods after a moment, seeming to come to his own conclusion. It's good of Midoriya-kun to do his assignments early. Allowing him to study will allow him to take advantage of the school facilities. Tenya doesn't shout, but it's getting there. Yep. In the vents above the self-proclaimed Deku Squad lays Shota. He takes a sip of his jelly pack, quietly, as he sees how long it will take for any of the students to notice he's there. It's a good exercise for any potential students wanting to go underground. So far, only Atsui has spotted him and sent him a long blink, much like that of a cat. It's probably a good thing that no one in this group wants to be an underground hero then. Isn't his friend in 2A? Todoroki contributes to the conversation, looking slightly bitter and staring at an extra bento that he's brought with him. I think so. I heard Deku-kun saying he was going to talk to Shikamaru-senpai earlier. Uraraka contributes with a little tear. Shoto's blood runs cold. There has not been a single student in the second year with that name. There hasn't been. Not for the longest time. At least, not since he was a second year. Oboro is dead. It's strange that Midoriya is claiming to have met him. There's no one that benefits if this is a cruel prank, but Midoriya isn't the type. He's got too wide, too honest eyes, and he cries when he hurts his friends. Shota slips out of the vent, appearing in front of his students, who only exclaim in surprised confusion before Shota stomps down the hallway. He doesn't even hear Tenya's worried shouts as Shota tracks down his problem child. Oh, it's Midoriya-kun! Midoriya-kun! An upperclassman slides open the door, while a mob of second years come to look at Izuku. It makes him feel a little uneasy having this much positive attention. What's up, Midoriya-chan? An upperclassman, Kagami-senpai, asks him. She's always too friendly when he encounters her in the hallway, but that said, Izuku has reminded her of a little brother. Oh, I was wondering if Shikamaru-senpai was in here? Izuku asks from the doorway. Kagami-senpai shakes her head, but tilts it in confusion a moment later. Maybe you're mistaken. We don't have Shikamaru-san in here. Maybe he's not in 2B either. Kagami-senpai hums to herself, deep in thought, and then walks to the desk a moment later. I'm sure that Shikamaru-san is waiting for you somewhere, wherever you two normally meet up, Midoriya-kun. Natukoi-senpai reassures him, cat ears twitching slightly while the tail waggles excitedly. Right, thank you all anyways, Izuku says awkwardly, and Nikota-senpai takes the chance to pet him, grinning ear to ear as he ruffles Izuku's hair. Izuku makes his escape before any of the other 2A students have the same idea as Nikota-senpai. But Nikota-senpai had good advice anyways, so he makes his way up to the rooftops, mulling over the new information carefully. Izuku stands at the doorway of the roof, an extra bento in his hand. It's filled with some sushi, nothing too budget-breaking, but Izuku hopes that it's enough. Izuku, you're here! Shikamaru-senpai floats over to him and grins at him. Izuku bites his thumb for a moment. Hi, Shikamaru-senpai. Izuku looks carefully at him. Shikamaru-senpai has been nothing but nice to him. It's hard to believe that none of the second years he knew had talked to him. Oh, is something wrong? You have the same face as my friend whenever he worries about something. Shikamaru-senpai begins, and Izuku silently hands him the lunchbox. No, thanks. Shikamaru-senpai begins and gently sets down the cloud. But really, what's wrong, Izuku? I asked for you at the 2A classroom, but Kagami-senpai said that you weren't in that class. Izuku looks up at Shikamaru again, and then he looks sheepish. Oh, that's right. I guess. Well, I'm not lying. I'm actually... Oboro? Both Izuku and Shikamaru-senpai turn to add the name. Midnight-sensei, Mike-sensei, and Aizawa-sensei are all there. staring at the two of them. Wow, you're all so old now, Shikamaru-senpai begins. Midnight Sensei is speechless, and Mike Sensei's jaw is dropped, but there is no sound. You guys look like you've seen a ghost, Shikamaru-senpai begins, and Aizawa Sensei activates erasure in a section. The clouds around Shikamaru-senpai disapparate, and the bento clatters to the ground. Shikamaru-senpai is still there, though, looking sadly at the bento. Shikamaru-senpai? Izuku asks, bewildered with the flutter of activity, but Aizawa-sensei aims erasure right at him when he goes to ask if Shikamaru-senpai is alright. I wanted to eat that too, Shikamaru-senpai begins, but is quickly silenced, mid-sentence. He's gone. 5. Izuku slumps down, staring at where Shikamaru-senpai was standing. He was there. The contents of the bento are scattered across the rooftops, evidence of their meeting. His teachers are quiet, too. Mike-sensei gently crouches down beside him and begins checking him over for any injuries. There aren't, but shock is a hell of a drag. Midoriya, did you know what that was? He hears Aizawa-sensei begin, and he feels the effects of Aizawa-sensei's razor-sharp glare begin to disapparate. What? Shikamaru-senpai just vanished. Izuku looks back at the rooftops, which is empty. In a moment, he thinks he sees the wisp of a cloud before Shikamaru-senpai pushes back into existence. Izuku, are you okay? Shota, that was totally mean. Shikamaru-senpai sends a cloud in Aizawa-sensei's direction before running over to check on Izuku. His hands are solid as ever, but when Aizawa-sensei swats the cloud away and tries to wrap his capture weapon around Shikamaru-senpai, they phase through him. Aizawa-sensei activates his quirk again, catching Izuku in range, and Oboro-sensei disappears yet again. Everyone looks paler than before. What does this mean? Izuku is escorted from the rooftop and straight to Recovery Girls. Testing from the quirk effects reveals that Izuku's not being affected by anything. Izuku learns later of his quirk, his invisible quirk. Ghosts blend into regular human activities so nicely and seamlessly that it's difficult to tell if they're alive or dead. Maybe that's why he was never able to tell he had it. It was a quirk he had inherited from his great-grandmother on his mother's side, with a slight mutation that made quirks visible to those around them. Ghosts like Shikamaru Oboro, who watch over the student body from the Yui rooftops. Oboro, we were friends while attending Yui, Aizawa-sensei begins, and Izuku listens to whatever Aizawa-sensei is willing to share. Do you want to see him again, then? Izuku offers. To Izuku, Shikamaru-senpai is a kind friend, but to Aizawa-sensei, he's an even more important person. Plus, Ultra 1. A ghost, Todoroki-kun whispers, and he looks like he wants to start another one of his conspiracies. Izuku sets down the bentos on the rooftop and sits down and then drags Todoroki-kun down too. Uraraka-san and Tsuyu-san are already seated, laughing at the joke that Shikamaru-senpai had shared with them. Shikamaru-senpai, quirks are prohibited outside of classes, Ida-kun scolds. But Shikamaru-senpai snaps his fingers, and a cloud appears over Ida-kun's face. Shikamaru-senpai, evaporate this cloud at once. I don't think I will, Tenya. I can't believe you're so big now. You used to be a baby. Uraraka-san giggles in her hands, and Todoroki-kun watches very curiously before leaning over to whisper in his ear. Make my brother appear too, please. It's tacked on in the end, but Izuku gives a little nod. If he's ever in range, let me know, Todoroki-kun. Izuku agrees, and continues unpacking the bentos, placing one in front of everyone. He's packed the extra mochi for Uraraka-san, and a box of soba for Todoroki-kun. Ida-kun gets 2 bottles of juice, and Tsuyu-san gets 2 jelly cups. Oh, Shikamaru-senpai, do you want anything? Izuku calls out, and Shikamaru-senpai just waves his hand. I'm good, Shikamaru-senpai says, and Izuku nods. I hope you weren't planning on keeping us out of the fun, kids? Midnight Sensei slams open the rooftop access, lunch in hand, trailed by Mike Sensei and Aizawa Sensei. You guys, good to see you! Shikamaru-senpai cheers, and sends one more cloud Itakun's way before he dashes over to his own friends. We wouldn't miss it. And that was Say Goodbye to Yesterday, It's a New Day by PoppinBoppin, read to you by Artemis_anime. Thank you so much for listening. You should really go check out this person's archive of our own account. It is so delightful. I hope you guys all have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys next week. Thanks for listening. Bye!